started in this business, when you decided to try and make a career, a business out of being an artist, being a photographer, if only there was a plan, if there was a plan to follow step by step that said, do this here, do that there, this is when to do this, this is how to get set up, right? And sadly, there's not a plan that I'm aware of that's out there, or certainly that there has been, or that takes you through where you are step by step, right? And that's a subject I want to rant on here for a little bit today. And we've created one, and it's essentially a business plan for that meets you exactly where you are, okay, in your artistic career, and says, based on your answers to these questions, this is where we believe that you are in your business journey and what you need to be working on, right? And it represents sort of the newest evolution in how we're doing things at art storefronts, and ultimately how we're advising our customers, right, on what to do. And to kind of give you the backstory, up till now, up till this point, um, art storefronts has been really good at having the best education to grow in art or photography business, right? And we've had it in a bunch of different areas, in a bunch of different places, and on workshops and on lives and in the podcast and in all these various different places where we could seek to get better, to improve, is to say we can't just have one size fits all advice, right? One size fits all advice doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because people end up working on things that are baby steps ahead of where they are really right at that moment in time in their business. And so this plan that we've called, when we call it the art marketing assistant, okay, represents our latest and greatest thinking. And we're building it and refining it, and we're offering it as a service in our in-house marketing agency. And as part of that process is like building that product out. One of the things that this whole plan starts with is an audit, and the plan is start to finish. Many of our customers have already seen it. Some of you guys that have been watching lives have seen it already, but the whole process starts with an audit, and it just asks a question, and it says, okay, based on some parameters that we have set out, where are you actually in your business, right? And we take a look at your website and all the various different technical aspects of your website, and then we look at your website in terms of best practices, and are you following best practices? And I'm going to get into those in just a minute. And then we also look at, do your social sites meet the minimum barrier of credibility? Okay, the minimum barrier of credibility is, are they designed to best practices? Do you have enough followers to look credible? And does the post makeup accurately reflect the best practices that you need to have, okay, in order to give yourself the best chance, right, to sell your art or photography and grow your business? And the premise of this plan is that if you don't have these things in place, okay, you are making it significantly harder on yourself to grow that art or photography business. And so I wanted to talk about kind of where we are in terms of our latest and greatest thinking on the subject, right? And some things that you can potentially do, that you can potentially audit yourself, right? And as it rolls along, you guys can certainly ask questions. You can ask questions on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and you can ask questions on Instagram. And I'll do my best to sort of stop as we're rolling along and asking them. And for those of you that are customers, okay, the advice is a little bit easier to deliver to you guys, right? Because you've been through our onboarding, and you have our website technology, and a lot of these things are set up for you correctly right out of the gate. But what's been interesting is we launched the service in terms of an in-house agency like basically 3 weeks ago now, I think. And we're starting to put our customers into cohorts. Cohorts are just groups, and march them through this audit one at a time. And I've been auditing a bunch of the websites myself personally to try to refine the process and get a little bit better. And I'm just totally stuck with some of the glaring omissions, even from customers, that we need to get up to best practices. And I think, anytime you contemplate the website building process and what that looks like, you know, it's easy to make a ton of mistakes. It's easy to miss on the easy, low-hanging fruit stuff, right? So I think a lot of the content that's going to be coming out of our live broadcast going forward is going to constantly pivot back to the map. It's going to say, hey, here is the business plan that we're advocating everybody follow. It is a plan to get up, running, ready, and it's a great way to be able to evaluate yourself, right? To evaluate yourself and say, hey, this is where I am on this process. This is what I'm contemplating. This is what I'm doing, right? So that's kind of where we are, and I've been seeing some fascinating results, okay, in the audits. And I think one of the places that we can audit up front, and I'm pinning your comment on Instagram. We'll get to that thing in a second, okay? I think it's going to be interesting for me to answer that. But one of the things for the audit is like, one, you have to audit how much you sold in the last 12 months. How much have you sold in the last 12 months? And I don't care if it's through galleries, if it's through live art shows, if it's directly off your website, in-person events, like you have to audit how much you sold in the last 12 months. And if that number is under a couple of $1,000, then that puts us on a different path. If it's over a couple of $1,000, that puts us on a different path. And so I think that's a great place to start your audit and contemplate kind of where are you, right? And what should you be working on based on the fact that you have or haven't sold a couple of $1,000s in the last 12 months? So that's a great place to start, big picture up front. But one of the things that I'm acutely aware of is in terms of this audit, right? Yes, you do need to get those, Gina. Everyone needs to get those. In terms of this audit, I love talking about the makeup of what your website, what your offerings need to look like on your website, right? And if you don't have this in place currently, it's pretty easy to get there such that you do have it, right? And this whole like little box is what we call website best practices, right? Website best practices for artists and photographers. It's very easy to listen to this and audit yourself and say, hey, am I on this path? Do I have this set up? Number one, do you have price points, okay, that are under $100, okay? And to get under the $100 limit, obviously you need to be offering smaller prints. Ideally, you need to be offering merchandise, and we'll get to that in a second. But you need to have prices under $100, okay? Then you need to have prices from $100 to $1,000, okay? And that's a very important price range. And then you need to have price points over $1,000, and over the $1,000 can go up to $50,000, $100, $1 million. It doesn't matter. The point is there are three distinct levels there, okay, where you need to have these various different price points, and you need to figure out a way to get there, right? And if you don't have it now, one, you need to audit your thinking in terms of how you're pricing your work. And then two, if you don't have these creations, you need to audit your thinking and how can I add these creations to my stack, right? And it's also why I believe all artists, all photographers, okay, should be offering a combination of open editions, limited editions, and originals, okay? And originals. Now, in terms of photographers, how do you offer an original? That's a little bit loosey goosey, right? Like, well, I took a photo. What am I going to do? Say this is the only time I'll ever sell the photo and call it an original? Yes, you can do that. Or you can do very tightly controlled limited editions. But when you have open editions and you have limited editions, then of course, if you're an artist, you have originals just by definition. You instantaneously take your offerings from just being a one trick pony to some spread and scarcity, some spread in price points, and some variability in the store, right? And that's so important to have. And there are so many artists that are not doing this, right? Like, well, I don't know how to do a limited edition. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to do a limited edition. Pick a piece, say it's a limited edition, make it 1 of 10, and put it in your store starting at $1,200. Not that difficult to do. You can do that, right? You can do that in 2 seconds, or you have a bestseller and you want to make it into a limited edition, fine. You can have it as a limited edition on a specific media type and say, this is going to be my limited edition. It's only on a metal. It's only on acrylic, right? Or it's only these larger sizes. They're totally limited. They're hand signed, but there's open editions of the same print available in all the various different varieties. Done. How easy was that? You can get that done in 2 seconds, right? Anybody can do that. So you need to have the price points and the 3 tiers. You need to have a combination of open editions, limited editions, and originals, right? A little bit different for photographers. Critically important. And even right there, How many of you guys have that? How many of you guys have that set up already, right? You need to have it. And it's an easy thing to do. And it's an easy thing to do that doesn't cost you any additional money, right? It's like a very, very simple thing. Um, I also believe all artists, all photographers need to activate and start offering merchandise. Okay. They need to start offering merchandise because it gives you a product that you can sell that is not wall art, right? Everyone thinks that everyone's ready to buy wall art all the time. In the case is most people are not. Most people are not ready to buy wall art all the time. Okay. Um, so when you have these products that are not wall art that merchandise gives you, and in merchandise I could say calendars and greeting cards and coasters and yoga mats and coffee cups and iPhone cases and throw pillows and tote bags and on and on and on. It matters less what the it is. Okay. It just needs to be it that is a differentiation from normal wall art, right? And when you go, I mean, the easiest way to say it is like, you're out there posting on social media and you're out there sending emails and you're out there running sales, and all of that can be considered your marketing initiatives, your marketing efforts, right? Well, when we do a marketing initiative or we do a marketing effort, really what we're trying to do is get an ROI, a return on investment from the time that we've spent doing those things. And when you don't have the three different price points that I just alluded to, when you don't have a combination of open editions, limited editions, and originals, when you don't have merchandise, what you're doing is you're taking your marketing messages to a group of 100 people, okay? Just to keep the numbers small. Out of that 100 people, there's only 3 people in there, okay, that have their hand up right now that need wall art. There's only 3. That's it, right? And out of those 3, you stand a much better chance if you expand your price points and you expand your offerings to have a product that meets them and exactly what they're looking for, right? In the merchandise, so too as well. So when we have the price points and we have the combination of open editions, limited editions, and originals, and then we have the merchandise, and we talk about that same group of 100 people, instead of that 3 people in there being ready to buy something, you might go to 12 or 15 or 20 of the people in there that are ready to buy something. So when you talk about your marketing efforts, okay, and getting an ROI, a return on investment, would you rather have 3 out of 100 people to potentially sell to, or would you rather have 20? You'd rather have the 20. And so that's what these things solve for. Instantaneously just get you completely set up, running ready to go. So it's just a very, very hidden in plain sight basic rule of business that once you add this, okay, your business is going to start prospering and thriving at a rate it wasn't prospering or thriving before, right? It doesn't mean that overnight it's going to make you a huge success, but as you continue to focus on your marketing throughout the year and you keep working on it and working on it, this gives you the ability to capture additional sales that you weren't capturing before. And that's a fundamentally important thing. And as I've been going through and doing the audits, despite the fact I've been telling my customers that they need to be doing this stuff, a lot of them still don't have it all completely set up, right? All they have are a bunch of prints in the shop. Well, where the heck are the limited editions? Or the prints, there's nothing priced over $1,000. Like, why don't we have things priced over $1,000? And there's really, really important reasons for all of these, why you need to be doing it. But they're basic rules, and they're not taught anywhere, right? Like, no one ever tells you that these are the things that the most successful artists and photographers have figured out. And guess what? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to do anything crafty or clever here. All you need to do is get these things set up and sorted in your store. Once you do, you're playing by the rules, right? It's just a simple rule book for success. So it's a huge part of the plan. It's a huge part of what we're pushing. We're starting to audit customer sites as we're building out this service. And these are the things that we got to get people to start taking action on immediately. You need to have a commission menu item on your website. You need to be open to taking commissions. And whether you ever have any intention of actually doing the commissions is utterly, totally, and completely irrelevant. You need to be taking commissions on your website, okay, such that you find out, you have a line in the water, you find out what people are willing to hand over cash money to you today to create for them. And what that does is that ends up giving you ideas of new subject matters, new materials, new niches to go into that you never would have been aware of if you're not open for commissions. And yet I go to all these various different websites and there's no commission button. on the website anywhere, or it's buried, somewhere in the footer menu or on page 27 of the About Me section. Like, if I come to your website, okay, and I don't see any language about commissions, I might be gone. I might be gone. I got distracted. I'm busy. I like what you're doing, but I don't like it for what I need right now. And so when you start asking for commissions, it utterly, totally, and completely changes the game. It just changes the game. So that is a fundamental part of having a website set up successfully to best practices. And I can tell you, for those of you that follow many of our Art Storefronts customers, you'll start to know that I've done my job and done my job correctly when every single solitary Art Storefronts customer site you see has a commissions button on it, whether they're taking commissions or not. It's just opening yourself up to getting the intel on what people actually want. And it might be a better niche than you're in currently, right? It might be a better subject material than you're doing currently. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to hear. Well, I just want to create what I want to create and what I love. Yeah, okay, great. But guess what? You better be open to new ideas and new directions. And you know what the best way to do that is? Having a freaking commissions page and form on your website. Because these are people telling you, this is the hot thing that I want. Do you want to make it for me? And then you can decide. And you can decide if this is a new direction you want to go and do. So fundamentally important, fundamentally critical idea to contemplate, right? And so that's what I would say on that. I'm going to keep ranting on this, but as a quick announcement, one, you can leave comments. I'm going to respond to them. I'm going to respond to this one on Instagram. Two, in a couple hours later today at 3 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. PST, 4 p.m. EST, we're running a group demo. And if you're on Instagram, it's in the link tree. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, it's in the description. You can click the link tree. You can register and you can come into a Zoom session we're running today where we're going to talk about this and we're going to live demo our software so you can see all the bells and whistles we offer. So that's there. But I have an interesting question here from Hey JSD. He says, and I'm going to have to move my mic. This is one of the complicated things of live streaming. I'll figure this out so I can read this. Just a sham. Everyone wants to piggyback on the artist. Does a real artist need followers to be credible? Do I need to sell out this whole Insta Facebook society to be taken as a credible artist? Yeah, you do. I'm here to tell you, you do, right? And one of the interesting things for me has been to be in this business for a number of years now, right? And when I see those comments like that, hey JJSD, whatever it is, and hope you're still on. Everyone aspires to have high ticket items, right? To be able to sell their pieces for 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 and to be in the biggest galleries in the world, right? And when you contemplate that audience, right? Selling at Sotheby's, selling at the other one, Christie's, and potentially get into Gagosian's gallery or whatever other big one. Every year, there's two big reports that come out on the fine art market at the very high end. One is called the Art Basel on UBS Global Art Market Report, and the other one is by an insurance agency out of London called the Hiscox Report. And over the last 5 to 7 years, so what these reports do is they survey the highest of the high-end art buyers, people buying art over $100,000 a year. And one of the primary questions that they ask them, these buyers, is what role did social media play in your art buying decision this year? And I have watched that little bar graph over the last 5 to 7 years just go up, 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 up. And so because they are visual platforms, and Instagram is more important than Facebook, but they're most important because they are largely visual platforms, they represent credibility for these artists. Okay. I'm going to find out about you and I'm going to find out about the fact that you're doing art, and instantaneously I'm going to go to your social media profile, and if it's crickets, you are not going to be taken serious as an artist in today's day and age. It's just it. That's just it. So even the highest of the high-end art buyers, social media plays a significant role in their buying decisions, right? So even if it doesn't hurt you every single solitary time, there will people that'll purchase even if you don't even have the social media. There's a whole bunch that won't. And so why would you not have it, right? You don't have to love Facebook. You don't have to love Instagram. I'm a social media marketing expert. The last time I did a personal Instagram post or Facebook post was 8 years ago because I detest it personally. But my business is not selling art, right? And yours is. So yes, I say it's critically important. Okay, I have another question on Instagram. Could quality of quantity be a thing to consider when looking at followers? Yeah, 100%, right? Like there's the whole follower gambit falls into two things, right? And it's a two-step process. Initially, it is about a minimum barrier of credibility. Okay, Brandholtz, you need to meet the sniff test. Okay, and if you don't meet the sniff test, then the buyers bounce, and they don't necessarily care as much if you have 10,000 fake followers or 500 real followers. You just need to have like a couple hundred followers at least, right? A couple hundred followers at least. Then they're going to look and see about whether or not your profile is dressed up. In Instagram, that means you need to have story highlights across the top. Okay, you need to have a good looking profile picture, not something that your 14-year-old niece took with a crappy cell phone camera where you're out of focus and you look ridiculous. Right? You need to look the part. Okay, and yes, it can be artistic, but start with a freaking good high res image. And so many people don't do that. From there, they're instantaneously going to hit your posts and look at your posts, right? And if you just have a grid of 20 two-dimensional JPEG images, image after image after image after image after image, that's nameless and faceless. There's no soul to it, right? There's no soul to it at all. That's not going to help you out in the slightest. And so you need to have a post makeup that makes it seem like, hey, this artist is a mover and a shaker, and they're out here doing big things. You need to have photos of you. You need to have photos of you holding your art. If you're a dog person, yes, occasionally you should throw in a photo of you walking the dog. Okay. People think that like you're going to get away with just selling your art, and it fundamentally misses on such an important point, which is you, the artist, and what makes you tick. You, the photographer, and what makes you tick is just as important as the work itself. Okay. You have to be showing the work itself and you holding the work, and ideally the work ending up on your customer's wall, and then ideally some information about a sale that you ran a couple of months ago, because then I start getting some FOMO that I missed out on a sale and there's another one coming up. And so at first, it's less about the follower count and more about, do you meet this minimum credibility barrier? And if you don't, it's sort of like, when you go and you look at a product on Amazon and you're like, ooh, this product's interesting. Maybe my neighbor has it or you saw it on TV. And then you go and you look at the product on Amazon and there's 0 reviews. And you're like, wait a minute, there's 0 reviews on this thing. Nobody's buying this thing. This thing's got to be a sham. Gone. You're gone. Now you're out watching cat videos. You didn't buy it. But when there's a healthy amount of reviews, you're like, okay, this thing meets the minimum credibility barrier for me, right? Or when somebody's being like a big shot and pulls up in their Mercedes and drops a business card, you're like, who is this fraud? And you immediately go to LinkedIn and you looked at the LinkedIn profile and they have the huge job title and they have all these reviews from these impressive people. They met the minimum credibility bar, right? Like artists fundamentally, do not appreciate enough social proof and how fundamental social proof is to human beings' buying decisions. And the Amazon reviews for artists right now primarily is the Instagram account. Secondarily, it's the Facebook account. And if you don't have those two things rocking, there are buyers that will come that got sucked into your ecosystem, that are interesting on what's going on, and they see you. They're like, I'm going to go check them out on Instagram. Your Instagram account looks bucket, and they bounce. And all that does is it prevents you from seeing an ROI on the marketing efforts that you are making. So yes, it's not my decision that Instagram has become the most visual platform for artists and photographers. And I know a lot of people are like, I hate social media, I hate email, or I hate social media. I don't want to do anything on social media. I don't really care about Instagram. I don't want to be on Instagram. That's fine, but understand what you're actually saying. What you're saying is, I'm not going to follow best practices. I know better how to sell my art. I'm going to do it my way. And you're totally entitled to do it your way. But what I'm telling you is you're making it difficult on yourself, right? You're making it much, much harder on yourself. Yeah. And this is a great question. Somebody asked on Instagram, he's just 21. Is it okay not to have Facebook? Yeah, I would say it's okay not to have Facebook. Facebook is sort of dwindling in importance in terms of Facebook versus Instagram. But the problem, Brandon Holtz, is that, or Brandon, I guess is what your name is, Brandon Holtz, is just we all fall into whatever, and this is why am I blanking on what this is? There's a term for it. It's going to come to me in a second, but we are all essentially biased. It's a bias. It's a cognitive bias. We are all essentially biased that everyone's behaviors are the same as mine, right? Is the same as ours, right? And so Brandon's like, he's 21, like kids of his generation, they're not on Facebook. They're not on Facebook in the slightest, right? And he doesn't spend any time on Facebook, and no one he knows spends any time on Facebook. So why the hell would he waste his time on it? And so the cognitive bias in his head is like, no one I know is on there. So why the heck would I worry about it? The reality, Brandon, is there are still a whole bunch of people that are on Facebook. Okay. And guess what? A lot of these people are a lot older than you. And guess what? They are of a much higher socioeconomic status than you are. And guess what? They appreciate art. And guess what? Their checks don't bounce. And so by saying, I'm not going to be on Facebook, you're saying, I don't want access to that pool of buyers. Right. And that's extremely short sighted. That's number one. Number two is, and now Instagram, every time I get a phone call, sometimes it knocks out the audio. Well, somebody tell me if the audio is knocked out or if you guys can still hear me. Instagram's got to let me know if you hear me. Somebody leave me a comment. It's sort of the trials and tribulations. And so my streaming setup, by the way, how often do I go live? Why do I advocate you guys go live all the time? Instagram on the thumb, software to go to Facebook group, YouTube. Heard. Okay. Thank you. They can still hear me. So going back to you, Brandon. So, on social media sites, thank you, Dwayne. On social media sites, it takes years and years and years to build them up. Okay. It takes years and years and years to build them up and to get them going. And what you find is that you need that time to slow cook them, right? To slowly start posting to them, to slowly start building followers to them and really get them going. So, despite the fact that you don't think your buyers, Brandon, are on Facebook, they are. And especially older people are on Facebook. And so if you start putting a little water on that page, you'll have a presence there and the presence will start growing and it won't be complete crickets. And then, oh, by the way, just because Facebook is like, necessarily, in the depths a little bit right now, understand what game we're playing here, guys. We are playing the long game. Okay. And let me just grab this prop because it'll be cool to show this. Nobody knows what these silly things are going to end up turning into, right? All we know now is most people don't have them and most people don't want to use them, right? And most people don't want to be in them. But strangely, Facebook is so bullish on these things long term, okay, that they're staking their entire world on it. Right? They've changed their company name to the metaverse, right? And that's because they think the future of augmented reality, and in this case, virtual reality, is going to be everything. And so, Brandon, staying on your track, Facebook might not be so cool right now, but guess what? If Mark Zuckerberg wins, and my bet is that he will win because the resources that he has, your Facebook page is going to be very, very important thing. And the subsequent followers that you have is going to be a very important thing once the metaverse does arrive. And guess what? It might take 7 or 8 years. But guess what? If you want to be an artist, 7 or 8 years is nothing. It's a snap and 7 or 8 years are gone, right? So it'll happen in 2 seconds and you'll be there. So yes, do I think Facebook is still important? Yes. Am I betting on Zuckerberg figuring out this metaverse long term? Yes. Once this metaverse is a thing long term, am I going to be doing my live broadcasts from my specially created studio / art gallery with this silly looking thing on? If that's where the attention goes and that's where the buyers go, that's where I'm going. And I want you to be thinking that same way too. So yes, I do want you to start a Facebook page, Brandon. Am I happy that you're asking these questions? When you're 21, yes, I am. I want to get my hooks into you and start planting into you some solid marketing ideas, because by the time you're 35 or 40, your business is going to be a cooking. Okay, I've got another good question on Instagram. I love these questions. I'm new to photography as an art. My work is very stylistic. 2 gallery people have told me people want more mainstream work. Do I have to change my style in order to sell? No, you don't. You have to start selling, and do not listen to gallery people. Okay, I'm not saying gallery people are not good people or not intelligent people, but they're stuck myopically in their own little world and what their own little style of gallery art sells. Number one. Number two, You know, there are so many hundreds of millions of people on this planet, billions of people on this planet, and there is an audience for so many different types of work in today's day and age. But the difficult thing for you, Kimber, is like you won't know until you start selling. What all artists and photographers do is they say, "Oh, these gallery people told me this, or my friend said I should do this work, or I should do this." And all you do is you have a bunch of people giving you advice that have not attempted to sell what you've created. So how the hell are you going to know if it sells or it doesn't sell? And how are you going to make course corrections if you don't put yourself into a feedback loop that says, "Hey, here's this new style of work I have. I don't know if it'll sell or not. I have an idea. I'm going to go try and sell it. And then I'm going to see how it sells. And it either sells it or doesn't. If it doesn't sell, maybe I should try something new," right? That's the loop that we get in. And you do it all the time. This is another thing artists or photographers are never taught. And I use the same quote all the time. Your job as an artist or a photographer is to fire a whole bunch of arrows. Okay. And guess what's going to happen? Some of those arrows are going to miss the target completely. It's going to end up in the neighbor's yard, but some are going to get close to the target and some will hit the target. You'll never know which one's going to hit the target until you start firing a bunch of arrows. Okay. What is the firing the arrows? It's creating a whole bunch of different styles and constantly attempting to sell them. That's the game of archery. And you'll never know until you start doing it. That's why you need to have a commissions page on your website. Rachel, do you have a commissions page on your website? If I go there right now, I better find one, right? So, you know, asking for commissions is saying, "Hey, I want to fire some new arrows, but I need some ideas." And so you have a commissions page on your website. Pablo Picasso, when he died, had 45,000 unsold works in his inventory. Do you know what Pablo Picasso knew? He understood selling art was a game of archery, and it comes down to how many different arrows you fire, right? So, Kimber, you need to fire different arrows. You stick with the body of work you have and you attempt to go sell it and you judge the results. If they're not doing great, you're constantly selling the old body of work and then trying new bodies of work, until you figure it out, right? This is so utterly, totally, and completely clear cut in the digital marketing world, and especially as it pertains to advertising. But I think this is a good framework for how you contemplate new styles and new variations. In advertising, okay, we come up with our ad creative, right? And let's say, you know, it's an image, it's a headline, it's a subheadline. And we write ad A and we write ad B. And we put ad A and ad B in the water at the same time to the same audience. And we let them run. And after a little while, what ends up happening is a winner emerges. And so, do you know what we do? We drop the loser, keep the winner, write another version, put that up, and the test goes again. And you're constantly doing that because you're constantly looking to beat the results that you already have. It's no different when you're creating art or photography. You constantly need to be dropping the loser, putting in a new winner, and seeing whether or not it beats what you have currently, because that's how you level up and you figure out what's really going to sell, what's really going to move the needle out there. So that's what I would say. That's how I would respond to that. But if you guys are interested in finding out more about Art Storefronts, more about what we do, we are having a completely free webinar today at 1 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. CST, 4 p.m. EST. The link is in the link tree. It's the top result or the second result on Instagram. The link is in the link tree if you're watching this on Facebook or Instagram. So you can come on today. I think Nick, the CEO, and I are going to run it. We're going to talk for a little bit and then right into a live demo, which is a tour of all the software, all the bells, all the whistles. So a fun thing that you can do. Probably going to run some more lives and keep ranting today, so you might see me again. But thanks for watching. In the meantime, guys, great days all.